In this video, we'll dive back into Flexbox and explore other features that will make layout much more efficient. Let's get to it. In our HTML file, I've added a new div with the class main containing 3 columns, and they each have a little bit of content. Some columns have more content than the others, as we can see here in the browser. So we'll need to convert these 3 columns into flex items. Once again, a flex item is any direct child of a flex container. So we'll need to make this main div a flex container. So in our flexbox.css file, we'll combine the nav and main selectors into one rule where we'll display them flex. So now when we refresh the browser, we can see that our columns are now flex items displayed in one row. Now let's go over a few more Flexbox properties we can use. For example, with the flex grow property, we can determine how much the flex item will grow relative to the other flex items. So let's take a look at this property. We'll select each list item in our nav. And since we're using Chrome, we'll use the WebKit vendor prefix, followed by flex grow and the value 1. So the number 1 represents the ratio of free space that should be taken by the list items. When we set the number to 1, the free space is evenly distributed. They take up the same amount of space, so as we can see here, the width of our list items are the same. We can also use the property flex. So I'll select our columns, followed by a WebKit flex, and I will also give that a value of 1. Now, let's select the third column, or column C, and we will give this a WebKit flex property with the value 2. So when we view it in the browser, notice how column C grows and the remaining space is evenly distributed between the other 2 columns. And if we change the value from 2 to 3, we can see how column C grows and takes up about 2/4 of the available space. If we needed to change the order of these columns, we can use the order property. So back in our column C rule, we'll do WebKit order, and we'll give it the value -1, which moves column C over to the beginning of our row. With Flexbox, it's easier than ever to vertically align boxes. Normally, we'd use margins, padding, line heights, or display elements as a table cell in order to achieve the perfect vertical alignment. But with Flexbox, all we have to do is use the property align self. So let's select our second column, or column B, and we'll use WebKit align self. Now we'll go ahead and use the value center. Let's refresh that in the browser. When we refresh, we can see how column B is vertically centered perfectly within the line. I'll go ahead and adjust this WebKit flex value to 2 so we can see this a little better. And now we can really see it perfectly aligned vertically. We can also use the value flex end, which aligns the margin edge of the column with the end. Now, the default value for align self is stretch, which makes all elements have the same height. So we'll just keep it at stretch for now. And we don't need to declare it in our style sheet because it's already the default value. We can adjust the layout of our flex items with media queries. So currently, the columns become too narrow when the browser width is below 1,000 pixels. So let's add a media query at that breakpoint that will display the 3 flex items in one column instead of a row. So in our CSS, we'll add the media query. And we will select main, where we'll display the flex direction as a column whenever it's below 1,000 pixels. So we'll go ahead and save this. So now, when the browser width is below 1,000 pixels, we can see the flex direction swaps the main axis and the cross axis so that it displays as one column and the lines of text are no longer too short. Even though we still need vendor prefixes, the Flexbox spec has stabilized and is currently in the W3C's candidate recommendation stage, so soon it will be released unprefixed as a final web standard. When using Flexbox in production, we'll need to make sure that the pages still display well for users whose browsers do not yet support it. We can use tools like Modernizer at modernizer.com to detect Flexbox support and provide a fallback solution if needed. By understanding how Flexbox works now, we can start thinking of ways to completely implement it into our layouts in the near future. So let's take another quick quiz to test those new Flexbox skills.